Good morning, grade 2s. Welcome to my world of fractions. Fractions has to do with wholes and parts. It actually more so has to do with wholes and equal parts. Now, if you think about a whole, it's got nothing to do with a hole in the ground. It's got to do with something that is not cut up into parts. A fraction has to do with cutting something into equal parts. Say, for instance, I need to share this apple with one of my best friends. Then I do not want to make them sad and give them just a tiny bit of my apple while I have a big part. So I will share it into 2 equal parts. And we call this halves. This is one half, and this is the next half, and when we put them together, we call them halves. Now, if for instance, my best friend has their friend there, he would have to cut his half in half, which would give him 2 quarters. You got that right? 2 quarters is the same as saying 1 half. And then if I also have another friend there, I will have to cut my half in half as well, which means my half would also now be shared into 2 more equal parts, which will be 2 more quarters. Now, look at this interesting fact. Out of one whole apple, right? I'm going to put it together here. Let's see if I can fix my apple again. All right. Okay, let's play it's fixed, right? So let's say there's my whole apple. There's my whole apple. Part of it jumped out of my hand now. All right. So there's my whole apple, right? And now the apple has halves, and now the apple has quarters. So 1 whole became 2 halves, became 4 quarters. Can you see that? And 2 quarters is the same as 1 half, and there you see that as well. Okay. So now I hope you understand what a fraction is. Now a fraction is not just, it's not just a whole, a half, and a quarter. A fraction can be much more than a whole and a half and a quarter. It actually has to do with cutting things into equal parts. Maybe you want to cut things into 3 equal parts. Or maybe you would like to cut it into 5 equal parts. Let's see what happens. Right, so here we go. 1 whole equals 1, 2 halves. Can you see that? Then, at the same token, that 1 whole can be cut into something called thirds. 1, 2, 3 thirds. And also, that 1 whole can be cut into 1, 2, just move this one up a little bit. 1, 2, secure it there. 3, 4 quarters. Oh, let me hold that together. There we go. Now we've divided the whole into 4 quarters. Even more so. 1 whole can also be divided into, you got it. What are we doing now? Ones smaller than quarters are fifths. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fifths. There we go. So there we have it, 1 whole. 1 whole is 2 halves, is 3 thirds, is 4 quarters, is 5 fifths. Sharing a whole into equal parts. Now, let's say tonight I ordered some pizza. And the next thing happens, my friendly neighbor drops by. I think she saw the pizza truck. Right, let's see what happens then. All right. Now, I've got to cut my pizza into halves, which means I'm still pretty fine. I will have this half, and my neighbor will have the other half. But oh dear. Now, my neighbor's husband comes along. Let's see what happens. All of a sudden, the 2 halves will no longer be efficient. Now, we have to start working with thirds. And as you can see, my third is slightly smaller than my half. So now I'm going to be a good girl, and I'm going to share it into 3 equal parts. There we go. But oh dear, the doorbell rings, and there comes yet another friend. Now, what now? No, I can no longer cut the pizza into thirds. I have to cut it into quarters now. The quarters has to do with cutting it into 1, 2, 3, 4. You got that right. Into 4 equal parts. So we've got 1, 2, and there's another quarter, 3, and another quarter, 4 equal parts. Wow, look at that, eh? And what do you see about the 2 quarters again? Same as here. 2 quarters is 1 half. So there you see it too. 2 quarters equals, you can see it's 1 half, and there's the other half. Right. 2 quarters is 1 half. But that was not the end. Here comes the neighbor's daughter along as well. We've got to make a plan. Okay, so now finally, before we can dig into that pizza, we're making it into fifths. So let's see, 1, 2, 3. Fifths has to do with sharing equally into 5 parts. 3. Oh, did I count correctly? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm interrupting myself. 5. There I have it. 5 equal parts. And now we can all sit down around the table and have a bite. I might have to have my apple with it, because a fifth of a pizza might just not be enough to fill up my stomach. Right, so this is what we have. Let's go over it one more time. We've got fractions. Fractions has to do with 1 whole being the same as 2 halves, as 3/3, as 4/4, and as 5/5. Right, so now today I also want to show you one more thing. Now say for instance, I have divided this rectangle into 2 equal parts. Then I've got 1/2 and another half. If I would remove 1/2, what do I have left over? 1/2. That's correct. So the rectangle has 2 halves, right? The same rectangle has 1, 2, 3/3. Can you see? If I remove 1/3, how many thirds would be left? 1, 2/3 would be left. The same rectangle would have, let's have a look, how many quarters? If the quarters fit like this, they will fit onto the rectangle like that. Can you see? There's the whole rectangle, and the quarters fit on it like that, right? 4/4. What if I take off 1/4? How many quarters would I have left? 1, 2, 3/4. And if I would remove another one, how many quarters would I have left then? 1, 2. And can you see? 2/4, 1/2. 1/2, right? If I would remove another quarter, I would be stuck with 1/4. That's good. Right, so now let's see. We can go smaller than quarters. We can do fifths, as you saw there with the family that grew so rapidly after I got my pizza. Let's get into the fifths. There we go. 1, 2, 3. How many fifths will there be? 4. There will be 4 fifths. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fifths. So let's see what happens. I give 1/5 away, and what do I have now? 4 fifths. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I remove another fifth, I would have 1, 2, 3 fifths. And if I remove another fifth, let's say I'm eating a chocolate. I'm all about food today. If I remove another block of my chocolate, I would have 2 fifths left. And if I remove another block, I would have 1/5. And if I eat that, I will have nothing at all. Okay, so boys and girls, fractions are fun. Fractions has to do with sharing into equal parts, and fractions is all the little bits that we get out of one whole. So remember that? One fraction is a whole. 2 fractions are halves. 3 fractions of a whole is called thirds. 4 fractions of a whole is called quarters. 5 fractions of a whole is called fifths. And the amount of fractions that we have left of that whole has to do with either 1/2 or 2/3 or 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 quarters, or maybe 2 fifths, right? So that's what quarters, halves, thirds, fifths, and all these fractions are. You can cut something into 1,000,000 pieces if you wish. So your fraction could also say 1,000,000th of something. So it grows and grows and grows, but it doesn't grow bigger. The bigger the numbers, the smaller the fractions. So you can see this. This is a half. So that 2 means a whole would be 1, right? That is a half. The 2 means 1 of 2 equal parts. There's your third, right? A third means 1 of 3 equal parts. There's your quarter. A quarter is 1 of 4 equal parts. There's your fifth, and the fifth is 1 of 5 equal parts. And there you can see the fifth is smaller than the quarter, is smaller than the third, is smaller than the half, and the half is smaller than the whole. All right. So I've got this little activity for you to do at home. You can take a piece of paper. You can turn it around. I'm going to show it here. Right? I'm going to illustrate it right here on my chest. Here we go. I'm going to try and draw a circle right in front of you here. There we go. I have my circle. And now I'm going to, as best as possible, cut out my circle. Here we go. I'm cutting it on the outside of the black line, just like I always teach you in class. Cutting out the circle. And let's pretend this is my pizza that I had to share so many times. Right. There we go. There's my circle. Okay, so I'm going to fold my circle into half. Right. And when I open it, I have 2 equal parts called 2 halves. Now I'm going to fold my circle into quarters. And when I open it, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters, right? And then I want you to take a coloring pencil, or if it's quite small, I don't think Mommy will mind if you do it with a marker or whichever you want to use, and then color in 2 of your quarters. And what do we see? If I color 2 quarters here, what's left of this circle? The other half, which means 1 quarter and another quarter is the same as 1 half, right? So on this paper, I want you to color 2 quarters. Good. Plus, I've got another paper here for you. This is called a rectangle. Now, out of this rectangle, I'm going to make 3 equal parts, right? So we're going to fold it there. I'm going to fold it to the front, but I'm not going to press it on the side. Then I'm going to fold it back like that. And I'm going to shuffle it so that it looks like equal parts to me before I press it together. What happened now? I formed thirds. Can you see that? 1, 2, 3 equal parts. And then I want you to go ahead now and color 2 of your 3 equal parts. What is it? What are 3 equal parts? It's called 1/3. There's another third, and there's another third. There we go. And I want you to color the first 2/3 so that you can see what's left after you've colored 2/3 of 3/3. Because remember, 3/3 is one whole. And after all those little bits, have fun. I'll see you next time.